Ladies and gentlemen, the hour of 11:30 having arrived, the Senate will now convene. We'll ask that the Secretary call the roll.
Onnested, Alquist, Ashburn, Benoit, Calderon, Cedillo, Cogdill, Corbett, Correa, Cox, Denham, DeSaulnier, Ducheney, Dutton, Flores, Hancock, Harmon, Hollingsworth, Huff, Kehoe, Leno, Liu, Lowenthal, Maldonado, Negrete McLeod, Oropesa, Padilla, Pavley, Price, Romero, Runner, Smidian, Steinberg, Strickland, Walters, Wiggins, Wolk, Wright, Weiland, Yee. Mr. President, a quorum is present.
Members, we are advised that a quorum has been established. Could we ask that the members and our guests beyond the rail and in the galleries please rise? We will be led in prayer this morning, actually this afternoon, by our guest chaplain, our own Senator Mark Leno. Following the prayer, we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Senator Dave Cox. Senator Dave Cox will lead the pledge following our prayer. Senator Leno, please come forward.
We pray to the Holy One, Hashem, creator of us all. We give thanks for the endless blessings in our lives, the blessings of good health and strength, energy and well-being. We thank you for the opportunity to learn, to serve, and to share for the betterment of our families and our communities. May your favor rest upon this land. Be with those who work to bring harmony, peace, and prosperity to all its inhabitants. Be our inspiration and our light, guiding us to act with thoughtfulness, clarity, and compassion. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, creator of the universe, who has given us life, sustained us, and brought us to this time and place. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members, privileges of the floor. Are there motions, resolutions, and notices at this time? If not, we will move to consideration of the daily file. Members, we are in regular session. Once again, we are in regular session, and I understand, Senator Ducheney, that you have 2 items you'd like to take up in regular session. Before we do that, Senator Ducheney, let me ask if the House can come to order, please. Members, if we could ask that individual members take their seats if possible and try to limit conversation. We have 2 measures under regular session, which I believe Senator Ducheney is about to take up. Senator Ducheney.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Our Senate Bill 68. I'm sorry, I don't know.
This is Senate Bill 68. File item 76, members. Secretary will read.
Senate Bill 68 by the Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review and Act relating to community redevelopment and declaring the urge thereof to take effect immediately.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, members, this bill is an urgency measure that needs to be enacted before November 15th in order to give our cities and counties greater flexibility in how they provide the loans we have sought from the redevelopment agencies. It provides additional flexibility to make the 0910 transfer by allowing them to borrow from existing balances in the low moderate housing fund. The statute we passed earlier this year gives them borrowing from their future payments, but this would allow them to borrow from their existing funds. Loans would still have to be repaid within 5 years. Requires the Director of Finance to adjust the amounts proportioned to delete territory for any RDA that actually deleted territory prior to August 1 of 2009 from their area, and also and that's it. And is an urgency because the Director of Finance is charged to make a determination with respect to the share of each redevelopment agency is being asked to contribute by November 15th. So if we pass this quickly, they will have greater flexibility in doing that, and it will solve some of the issues for some of our local governments. Ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Members, do we have debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary will call the roll. 2/3 members, there's an urgency clause on this item.
Onnested? Alquist? Aye. Ashburn? No. Benoit? Aye. Calderon? Aye. Cedillo? Cogdill? Aye. Corbett? Correa? Cox? No. Denham? DeSaulnier? Aye. Duchesne? Aye. Dutton? No. Flores? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Harmon? Hollingsworth? No. Huff? Aye. Kehoe? Aye. Leno? Aye. Liu? Aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Maldonado? Negrete McLeod? Aye. Oropesa? Padilla? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Price? Aye. Romero? Runner? Smidian?
Aye.
Aye. Steinberg? Strickland? Aye. Walters? No. Wiggins? Aye. Wolk? Aye. Wright? Wyland? Aye. Yee? Yee, aye.
Sergeant at Arms, please call the absent members. Secretary will call the roll, calling the absent members only, please.
Onnested? Cedillo? Corbett? Correa? Denham? Harmon? Maldonado? Oropesa? Romero? Runner? Steinberg? Wright? Wright, aye.
Call the absent members.
Onnested? Cedillo? Corbett? Correa? Denham? Harmon? Maldonado? Oropesa? Romero? Runner? Steinberg?
Ayes 24, noes 5. Senator Duchesne moves the call. Senator Duchesne, your next item, please.
Senate Bill 69.
This is Senate Bill 69. Members, file item 77. We are in the regular session. Senate Daily File, regular session, file item 77, SB 69. Secretary will read.
Senate Bill 69 by the Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review, an act relating to public social services and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, members, you will recall that in July we passed bills that had very aggressive timeline for implementing some of the changes to the IHSS program. One of those involved provider enrollment, new orientations and such. And the deadline that we were advised by finance and others that could be met at that time was November 1. However, November 1 has come, and if most of you, I imagine at this point, have heard from your counties, every county in the state is having major difficulties implementing this. And we had a hearing last week, some of you may have seen, the Assembly Budget Committee that some of us also attended, where we asked the department, well, when are you going to finish this process and how do you finish it? And, you know, the normal way the Department of Social Services has worked in the past, they convene with stakeholders, they talk to the counties, they work with them to figure out how to implement any changes to these programs. In this case, they are not doing that. They have not done that. And every county in the state, we have letters from most of them, are saying this is causing huge hardships, not only to the county and its staff to try to do something they can't do, but in fact to our individual constituents who are unable to then have providers help them. There is no new providers being enrolled because the department has not provided with the counties with the materials they need. They don't have forms in languages other than English. They don't have a lot of the things that counties have needed to do this. So it's clear that while they attempted to be aggressive, the all-county letters, some of them, the counties will argue, put them in positions of legal liability because they're changing the way people are doing business, and they haven't consulted sufficiently. It was very clear from the hearing last week that that's the situation. So this bill would require the department to enter into the stakeholder process, require that at a minimum it be completed by February 1. They told us last week they could complete all of this this week. If that's true, they can notice us this week, and the whole thing can go into effect 60 days from that. This bill says they must convene that process, they must give us notice, and then the program would be implemented within 60 days of that occurrence. It is extending the deadline. I understand the concern that it will erode savings, but frankly, members, if those savings are based on the theory that people should not have care because we can't actually enroll any new providers in this state this week, that is not the best way to go about it. We need them to be efficient, but we also need them to do it in a way that our counties can actually implement. They don't have any instructions, they don't have the materials, they don't have the contracts and resources to do the background checks that are required. Their guidance conflicts with current law, and the counties are very concerned about liability in those instances. They just need more time, members. DSS has argued, although we argued in the Budget Committee last week, that we thought they could do it on their own. They could delay the implementation whatever time is necessary in order to actually get all the pieces in place for the counties. They have said they don't think they can do that without statutory authorization, and therefore this bill, Ms. Evans presented this bill, and it passed out of the Assembly on a 68-0 vote. I'd ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion on this item, members? Debate or discussion? Senator Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in strong opposition to this measure. This measure is essentially gutting major provisions of this summer's budget agreement that dealt with fraud and abuse in the IHSS system. The fact that counties are saying that they want to delay this simply means that those very important savings to the state budget, those very important savings that would make sure that people are not abusing this system, would not go into place potentially until April of next year. We're talking about tens of millions, if not maybe over $100 million in lost savings to the general fund. Those are things that have clearly been identified in our analysis, but it's unfortunate that we have not had the ability to thoroughly analyze this bill and hear this bill in the legislative process because it has not gone through one single legislative committee. If we're going to have budget agreements, if we are going to implement those agreements, we cannot be coming back a few months later and deciding, oh, well, we don't quite like the way that happened and we're going to change that. This is just another way of unwinding that, and those savings are crucially important as we move into December and January and we see the continuing budget erosions that we have. We should not be supporting this measure. We should be opposing it.
Further debate or discussion? Senator Ahlquist.
Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, was at that hearing on IHSS last week, and some things were very clear to me. One was that DSS had promised that services would be provided to all of the people who needed them. Second, we are talking about over 300,000 recipients and over 400,000 IHSS workers who will be in jeopardy. And by that I mean because the counties have not received clear, complete, and instructions in languages that they need to use, nobody will get any money. That means the workers won't be paid, and that means that the recipients won't get the services. And what does that mean? We can say recipients won't get services. What it means is that there will be disabled and frail elderly who will be in bed, who will not be able to get out of bed, who will not be able to go to the bathroom, who will not be able to have meals. And I would like you to really think about that. When I talked to the department and asked questions of them in the hearing last week, I said, you know, I know you are people of goodwill, but you are not showing any responsibility to see that these instructions are being sent to the counties in the languages that are needed. They did not have a response for me. Oh, they said, oh, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. Well, the deadline was yesterday. The counties have not gotten the correct information. Money will not be spent on this program, and a lot of people's lives will be in jeopardy. I stand in strong support of SB 69.
Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Ahlquist has very appropriately and articulately put a human face on the situation. I won't repeat all of that. I do just want to point out how severe the problems that we have created with these unattainable deadlines have become. There are stories that even this past Saturday night, as late as 10 p.m., the department was communicating with counties as to the provisions they needed to comply with the very next day, 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. So this just sets a deadline of February 1st, which I understand was a request put forward by the Republicans on the Assembly side. As Senator Cheney has accurately pointed out, it can be completed in less time than that, and we encourage them to do so. This doesn't change anything that we did in the budget. It just says we want to take a few extra weeks to get it right, because there are significant dollars at risk and also human lives at risk. And of course, we all should be very cognizant of what happens if too many of the recipients of this program do not receive the services they need. They'll go into long-term care, and we'll see our budget problems exacerbated in the coming year. So this is worthy of support. Ask your aye vote.
Senator Wright.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is actually a scary proposition, because here we're almost being dollar-wise and hundreds of dollars foolish. A good portion of the money that comes into this program are federal dollars. If we don't access them, those dollars don't come. If we lose those dollars, members, most of that money, for the most part, goes into salaries. The salaries that those federal dollars pay come back to us as income tax. So if you take into account, and I'm not sure the number, but I'm going to guess it at somewhere north of 50% of the money that we're describing is federal dollars. And if you take that we were going to get somewhere north of 10 or 15% of that back as income tax, because all of it is just going to workers, it's a number that's probably 3 or 4 times whatever you might have picked up in savings on pursuing the fraud. So we're going to chase a savings of a couple of $100 million on fraud, and that's a good piece of money. But we're probably going to leave $600 or $700 million in federal funds on the table as we pursue that. Just on its face, I'm sure somebody would have to go, wow, does that really make good sense that you're going to leave all that federal money on the table? And then, as Senator Leno just pointed out, the people for whom you're unable to provide the care will either end up in a hospital or in long-term care. And if you take that cost against what the IHS cost would be, you're losing again. So we're going to end up attempting to save about $100 to $200 million, maybe, if the fraud number is real, and I don't believe that it is. But we're going to forfeit somewhere north of $600 billion to the general fund in order to do that. The 600 is a guaranteed loss. The 100 to 200 that you might save is a maybe. That's actually not a good deal, members. So I hope we look at this, because people are not going to stop getting sick because we can't agree on the formula by which we assess this program. So I would seriously ask for an aye vote, and I would hope that we're able to come to grips with this. And if all we're talking about is whether or not it's February or October or February or December, then let's have a discussion about the date. But let's not let people suffer, and let's not let the federal dollars go back because we couldn't agree on a mechanism by which we receive the money.
Further debate or discussion? Senator Dutton.
Yeah, members, I'm going to rise in opposition to this, not because I don't have feelings for the people that are going to be affected, but because, frankly, I'm getting fed up with the lack of accountability. And I'm also getting fed up about everybody using the elderly and the disabled and the people in need as the excuse for them not doing their job. You know, we're starting to talk about reforms and how the best reform government. Well, I would suggest we start with the Department of Social Services because, frankly, they had plenty of time to get this done. They've come up with more excuses since I've been here in the legislature for not doing their job better, okay, than any other agency in this entire state government. So let's start making, let's hold some people responsible. I don't like the idea that the poor people out there and the public is going to pay the price, but it's about time that we start showing there's a consequence to these civil servants who work in social services for not doing the job. You give them some more time, and believe me, they'll come back with another excuse as to why they can't do it. It's time that we start cleaning house here in state government. Let's make these people accountable. Let's do some serious reforms and put this budget back in the shape where it belongs so we can help more people and not put other people in the poorhouse in the process. I urge a no vote.
Further debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Duchesne, you may close on this item.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, I appreciate the debate, and I certainly appreciate the concern that there will be an erosion of savings. But to be honest, I'm not sure many of us believe that there were savings associated with these programs. If you ask the counties, I think they'll tell you these so-called reforms will cost more than anything else. What this will not undermine, and I appreciate Senator Hollingsworth's point, but this does not change the existing underlying so-called reform that was made to require the providers what they're not implementing, the portion that hasn't been stopped by the court. This is just the piece that they were supposed to implement by yesterday. Requires completion of a new provider enrollment form, submission of fingerprints and background checks, attending provider orientations, and signing an agreement. All of those things can and should be done, and Senator Dutton is probably right. The department can and should have done this. Now, whether the third furlough day interrupted that, that's an excuse we've heard a lot this semester. Who knows why the department wasn't able to do this, but the truth is the department has not met its obligation. And the question before us, members, is whether they're going to ask the people that Senator Alquist and Senator Leno described. If you've seen the flyers that are coming around from the individual cases in counties where people are being hospitalized because the county is unable to enroll new providers. So what we're going to have, members, if we do not pass this bill, is a situation that for the next 2 or 3 months, while the department tries to get it together and the counties then try to implement whatever it is the department comes up with, that we will not be able to enroll any new providers, and anybody who comes in and needs a new provider in this system for that period of time, whatever it is, will not get one. We will be paying for that, as Mr. Wright points out, in Medi-Cal dollars. We will be paying for that in nursing home costs. We will be paying for that in a variety of ways. And this is not encouraging them to drag their feet. The administration does need to be held accountable here, but they need to be accountable by getting it done and doing it right. And the people who are going to pay the price here are the counties and our constituents who need the services and who wish to be those tax-paying providers that Senator Wright was talking about. These are people that want to work, that want to do the right thing, that are happy to provide the background checks. I don't think any of the actual requirements of the legislation are what's causing the problem here. It's how do you implement it in a fair way that's not going to get counties sued? How do you do it in a way that allows county workers to catch up and do it right and provide the orientation when the department has not provided them with the materials? It's just common sense, members. We cannot require people to do something that we're not providing them the tools to do. Now, granted, I would love to receive that letter next week and say, we've done everything we need to do, and now the 60-day clock runs and the whole thing will be implemented by January. That's the way it ought to work, members. But that's not what we're seeing today. And if we don't give them this opportunity to implement the way it can and should be done over the next 60 days, then we are going to see more and more cases of suffering, and we are going to continue to hear from counties that it's simply impossible to do the job without support and a proper direction and guidance from the Department of Social Services. I agree that services should have been clearer about what they were doing, and it should have been clear to us earlier. They should have talked to the counties. There's a lot of should-haves and could-haves here, but the bottom line is that today, counties cannot do this. They are required to do it as of yesterday, and we are getting no new providers enrolled in this state until the department straightens this out. You know, we can all hope that that'll be before Christmas, but, you know, this bill will give them until, with a date certain, February 10th or 1st to do so. I don't think that's an unreasonable period of time. Better to get this right, get the long-term savings, if there are any savings to be had from these so-called reforms, then those savings will be in the long term. It does not change the underlying policy. I'd ask for your aye.
Senator Denham, do you have a question of the floor manager on this item?
I do indeed, sir.
Question of the floor manager.
Yeah, I've heard a couple times Senator Leno said a couple of weeks, heard a couple of months. Our analysis says April 1st. I mean, I agree that they probably need a little more time.
Yeah.
Is it April 1st? Is it a couple months? Is it a couple weeks?
Well,
here's a big difference.
Yeah, no, there is. The April 1st is sort of the maximum date. What this is they must give us notice. They must do a convene stakeholders. They must give us notice. And then they have up to 60 days to implement after those occurrences. So my argument is, if the department had their act together, they could give us the notice next week, and this could be implemented by January 1st or February 1st. What this bill sets is a deadline that says you must get all those things in place by February 1st, and that would be the basis upon which April 1st would become the implementation deadline. But that's only if the department, as Senator Dutton points out, continues to not do their job the way they should do it, and were to take that maximum amount of time. So the maximum amount of time is the April date. One would hope and encourage the department to do it much more quickly and get this all straightened out before the first of the year, which I agree would be the appropriate date on which it probably should be implemented.
Thank you, Senator Duchesne. All debate having concluded, Secretary will call the roll. Members, this is an urgency clause measure, and 27 votes are required. Secretary, call the roll.
Onnested, Alquist, aye. Ashburn, no. Benoit, Calderon, aye. Cedillo, Cogdill, no. Corbett, aye. Correa, Cox, no. Denham, DeSaulnier, aye. Duchesne, aye. Dutton, no. Flores, aye. Hancock, aye. Harmon, Hollingsworth, no. Huff, no. Kehoe, aye. Leno, aye. Liu, aye. Lowenthal, aye. Maldonado, no. Negrete McLeod, aye. Oropesa, Padilla, aye. Pavley, aye. Price, aye. Romero, aye. Runner, Smidian,
Aye.
Aye. Steinberg, aye. Strickland, no. Walters, no. Wiggins, aye. Wolk, aye. Wright, aye. Wyland, no. Yee, aye. Mr. President, ayes 22, noes 10.
Call the absent members.
Onnested, Benoit, Cedillo, Correa, Denham, Harmon, Oropesa, Runner.
Ayes 22. Ayes 22, noes 10. Senator Duchesne moves to call. Members, on the previous item, which was file item 76, SB number 68, Senator Duchesne, we're going to lift the call on your previous item, please. That is file item 76. It is SB 68. Will the Secretary call the absent members, please?
Onnested, Cedillo, aye. Corbett, aye. Correa, Denham, Harmon, Maldonado, Oropesa, Romero, aye. Runner, Steinberg. Steinberg, aye. Mr. President, ayes 28, noes 5. Denham, aye. Maldonado, aye. Mr. President, ayes 30, noes 5.
Ayes 30, noes 5 on the urgency. Ayes 30, noes 5 on the bill. The bill is passed, and amendments are concurred in. We're going to lift the call on file item 77, SB 69. Secretary, please call the absent members.
Onnested, Benoit, Cedillo, aye. Correa, Denham, Harmon, Oropesa, Runner.
Ayes 23, noes 10. Senator Cheney replaces the call. Senator Steinberg. Senator Steinberg, we have a couple of items we might take up. We have SB 6 in the 7th extraordinary session. We also have Senate Bill 5, which is still in the Budget Committee. Senate Bill 5, members, you will recall, relates to the issue of water rights enforcement. It remains in the Budget Committee, that is the Committee of the Whole. And Senate Bill 6, which is on the floor in the 7th extraordinary session, is the groundwater elevation monitoring bill.
I'm going to need you.
Senator Steinberg.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to take up, please, SB 6 as part of the 7th extraordinary session.
Thank you. Senator Steinberg, could I ask that you come to the desk and confer briefly before we take that matter up? All right, members, we will recess the regular session. We will now call into session the 7th extraordinary session. Members, we are in the 7th extraordinary session. The prayer and the pledge will be deemed adopted. And we will go to Senator Steinberg, who has asked that we take up Senate Bill 6. Senator Steinberg, Senate Bill 6. This is the groundwater elevation monitoring bill. Is that correct, Senator?
No? I've got Luke Reyes. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President. This was a bill heard last night on our floor. It received 19 votes and is now up for reconsideration. This is the groundwater monitoring bill that requires local agencies, local water agencies, to perform the monitoring of elevations for groundwater resources throughout the state of California. The bill states that if the local agency fails to do so, the Department of Water Resources would be the provider of last resort. But if DWR had to step in, the local agency that failed to perform the groundwater monitoring would no longer be eligible for water grants and loans. Throughout the discussions, as I said last night, with the Republican members of the House, through their leadership, we did take amendments which make it clear that water agencies are prohibited from accessing private property without the property owner's permission, or to compel submittal of monitoring data. So in other words, it's a mandate on the local agency, but they have to find a way to sort of induce the cooperation of the well owners in order to gain the information. It's a fair balance. It's part of the overall package. I would ask for an aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Onnested, Alquist, aye. Ashburn, no. Benoit, Calderon, aye. Cedillo, aye. Cogdill, no. Corbett, Correa, Cox, no. Denham, no. DeSaulnier, no. DeCheney, aye. Dutton, no. Flores, aye. Hancock, no. Harmon, Hollingsworth, Huff, no. Kehoe, aye. Leno, aye. Liu, aye. Lowenthal, aye. Maldonado, Negrete McLeod, aye. Oropesa, Padilla, aye. Pavley, aye. Price, aye. Romero, aye. Runner, Smidian, aye. Steinberg, aye. Strickland, no. Walters, no. Wiggins, aye. Wolk, no. Wright, aye. Weiland, no. Yee, no.
Call the absent members.
Onnested, Benoit, Corbett, Correa, Harmon, Hollingsworth, Maldonado, Oropesa, Runner. Maldonado, aye. Correa, aye.
Call the absent members.
Benoit, aye.
Ayes 21, noes 13. The bill is passed. Senator Steinberg, are there any other bills you'd like to take up? One moment, please. Thank you. Members, if we could ask for your patience, please. Senator Steinberg, one moment. Let me ask the House to come back to order.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Immediate transmittal to the Assembly of the last bill passed. Okay, thank you.
Immediate transmittal is granted. Members, if we could call the body back to order, and we go to Senator Steinberg at his desk.
Thank you, Mr. President. We will recess the House until 4:30. It is now 3:25. At 4:25, we will have a Democratic caucus.
Thank you, Senator Steinberg. Members, the House will stand in recess until 4:30. The President Pro Tem has announced a Democratic caucus in the Maddie Lounge at 4:25 for our Democratic members. That being the case, the House stands in recess until 4:30 p.m.